So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna have a look at the Personas Profile API from Segment and have a play around with it so you guys can see how to set it up and how to actually interact with it. Let's start with the first things first. What is the Personas Profile API? It's basically an API that sits underneath Personas and that allows you to query Personas and actually get a couple of things back. First thing is the external IDs endpoint, which allows you to query if you know for instance, the user ID of a user, but you would like to understand what other IDs a user has. The external IDs endpoint will give you that answer. There's also the trait endpoint, which allows you to capture or get back all the traits that a user has, or the events endpoint that allows you to request all of the events done by a specific user. Now, why would that be useful? For instance, to build an in-app recommendation engine, to empower your sales and support associates, to provide additional context, to power personalized marketing campaigns, and to qualify leads faster by embedding specific things. Usually what we see is it's used for personalization in the next page, for instance, or in the next session or in the number of pages. For near real-time personalization, we can use this API. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the basics. First of all, we're going to create an access to the API. You can do that by going into Personas, then Settings and API Access. You see that I already had, I'm going to revoke my old key. What I'm going to do is I'm going to generate a new one, test123. It's not a very good naming convention that I'm using, but it's for the sake of it. And then obviously it creates a problem, so I'm going to give it another try. Sometimes it bugs, which is the case now. Test234, let's use this one. Okay, I'm going to use this video to log a ticket in the meantime. Poof, you see that keys are generated, but I actually can't click in anymore in order to get the token. So let's give this another try. Test. Generate the token, poof, now we're good. Sorry for that, apparently I'm hitting a bug. I'll also file a request for that afterwards. But basically what you see is a couple of things. Let's go back to this page to start with. If we look at what API call to the profile API would look like, you basically look at this, you're looking at this. If we want to capture the traits at least, we're going to HTTPS profilesegment.com v1 space, and then we have your namespace as a variable. The your namespace is described here, which is kind of a slug or a cryptic value that we use. Then we move into external IDs, which is where we'll insert the user ID. And then obviously there's also the password. So what we're gonna try to do now is we're actually gonna try to make this work. I don't know where my Postman is. Okay, cool. We're gonna use Postman for this. Just for the sake of the exercise, quick and dirty. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy all of this in. Since we're getting info, we're gonna use a GET request. I'm gonna paste this in. I'm gonna copy in my namespace and I'm gonna put it in here. Poof. And then we have an external ID. Well, an external ID, what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a look at Glenn, for instance, this account, identities, user ID. Imagine that I'm a user, I'm Glenn Spark, and I'm logging in. And on that login, I would like to retrieve a couple of traits in order to then further personalize the experience that that user has on my platform. So what we're going to do here, we're going to say I'm querying a user ID, double point, and I'm gonna put in Glenn Spark. Oops. That's almost complete and we're almost ready to go. Last thing is authorization. We're using a basic auth, and oops, there's an old key in here. We're gonna remove that, and we're gonna use our new access token that we have here. Poof, paste it in, and now I'm gonna hit send. And so what you're seeing now is that basically I've requested all traits for user ID Glenn Spark, and I'm getting back the email, glenspark@test.com. Favorite color is red. My name is Glenn. I have a photo uploaded, which is true, and I have a photo uploaded trait, which is set to 1. Now, if we go back to personas, basically this is exactly what you'll find here: the email, the favorite color, the name, and then computer traits, and then probably like an audience I belong to, exactly photo uploaded, set to true. So it's very interesting to figure out if somebody belongs to an audience, if you based on that need to provide a real-time experience after login, etc., etc. Now I can play around with that because I've mentioned that there's a couple of endpoints. So let's give it a try for external IDs and see what happens. So what we're doing here is we're just swapping this out. We're going to resend it. And you see that response is different, right? We're getting GlanceSpark is a user ID, source ID, where did we get it from, collections, all of that stuff. But here you see a new ID, and it ends with 848B, and it states that it's an anonymous ID. So if we go back to the identity chart of GlanceSpark, you see that it's indeed 848B. Let's try the last endpoint, which would be events. Oops. So let's swap this out and move to events, send it in. And what we're getting now is actually a trail of events that have been sent in. So you see here, there's a track call that was sent in, it was a page viewed, this was the timestamp, etc., etc. And I kind of can go through the history of that user and figure out what happened. So that's basically how you use the Profile API for Segment in Postman. What we're going to do is we're going to have a quick look as well on how to use it in terminal for the geeks out there that prefer that way of working. There's also curl commands, so we're going to give that a try. I'm just going to copy this in. I'm going to open up my Sublime Text, paste this in, and then just go through the whole thing again. We have a space ID, which I'm going to paste in here. Then we have a segment ID, which I'm actually going to grab from Postman because copy pasting is easier. Poof, like that. And then we need our access token, right? So I'm gonna copy this. I'm gonna put this in here, and I need to select everything nicely. And what we're doing is we're going for the traits endpoint again. So now I'm gonna copy paste all of this. I'm gonna go to terminal. Let's enlarge this a tiny bit. I'm just gonna copy paste this in and hit enter. And what you're seeing now is exactly the same thing, right? Like I had in Postman, I actually get the same info back. So I hope this was useful, and I hope you guys can explore a bit the Personas Profile API.